I've been using Notion since, I'm guessing, 2021, maybe 2020. I just have that year to go off of based on a template that I made and shared at the end of 2021. I think I started using it because I love looking at data, I love documenting things, I love organizing things, I like to revisit and remember things, so I was really excited when I discovered it. It was just a source of fun for me, really. I was using it for a while pretty consistently, and then I ended up taking a long break when there was a bunch of stuff in my life happening. So in September of 2025, I started overhauling my Notion to get back into using it consistently again, which I have been, though I was starting to get worn down recently again. A lot of stuff happening in my life, and I think also just kind of a fatigue with Notion. Lately, I've felt put off by Notion's refusal to let you own your data more easily. I know you can export it, but it's not the easiest to use once you get it out. You'll still have to do a lot of cleanup, and having subpages within anything is also really complicated. I've also heard a few stories of people's spaces being deleted with no recourse, and I don't know for sure, I guess, the validity of these claims, but it seems possible, and having something like that happen would be pretty devastating to me, to just lose everything I've done all of a sudden. And I've also really been put off by their obsession with AI and just inserting it into absolutely everything they can. I don't want to contribute to the destruction of the earth any further than I already do by just existing in this world. So I started testing and using Obsidian on October 2025 after YouTube decided to randomly show me a video by Anna Howard called Creating a Digital Garden to End My Doom Scrolling. I found it really helpful for taking notes in a way that Notion has never been conducive to, as it's a program centered around data, and that's what it's best at. I was really excited by the backlinks and the unlinked mentions in Obsidian because they allowed me to resurface notes and ideas I had long forgotten, which is something that's virtually impossible to do in Notion. It doesn't track unlinked mentions at all, and backlinks are extremely rudimentary. They're really just a subtle mention at the top of a page that you have to click to expand and just see titles. Or you can integrate them into your properties, but you still can only see the names and would have to click into them. I was also finding it a lot easier to make connections between notes, to revisit topics more easily, and just even being able to organize my notes more effectively. I was always confused in Notion with where I should be putting things when I guess they weren't clear where to go in a database. And I also just really liked the graph view because it was a new way for me to visualize my notes. I like visuals, so anything like that is just cool for me to see. Then I discovered Capacities on May 4th of 2026, when YouTube decided to randomly show me another video, this one by Wesley Anna, called How I Digital Garden in Capacities and Why It Changed How I Use the Internet. I was very intrigued by the program, and with my more recent disillusionment with Notion, I was like, why not give it a try? So while I was diving deeper into it, because when I start researching something, learning about something, I go fully into it. And so I discovered Nim's Tech channel, and I watched their videos to learn a lot more about capacities. They even have a step-by-step guide on how to get started, which is very, very useful if you have no idea what's happening. I've been watching all the videos on their channel. I really enjoy them. I feel like since they're more artistic rather than just focused on like ruthless efficiency, I feel our ways of understanding the world are more similar. I like seeing how they do even just fun stuff like tracking movies and TV shows that they watch, which I feel like not everyone who uses these programs is doing. It seems like a lot of people are using it more for, I guess, like business purposes, and I have absolutely no interest in that. What I've learned from using all three is that Notion is still supreme for databases and anything involving data, so I plan to use it for things where being able to sort and filter large amounts of data is needed. Obsidian and Capacities bear more resemblance to each other in my opinion, and what I love about Obsidian is owning all of your data as you get to choose where it's stored, and there is no AI. It's also very customizable and really just intended to be what you make it. I also love that it's free, as is Notion within my specific use case anyway. I know businesses definitely will be paying and whatnot. You can pay to upgrade both of them, but I haven't needed that for either of them. And while I know Obsidian is very customizable, I've found it a bit overwhelming to try to do, and I feel like that's kind of the space that Capacities fills for me. It just gets me taking notes more easily. I like that I just decide what something is from the get-go, and then I can start taking my notes on it. I also really love Capacities UI and UX as a designer myself, and I find that it makes me excited to open up and use it, which is just as important as whatever program you're using and its features. You need to pay attention to what excites you and follow that. Capacities does have AI integration, but they can be easily turned off at least, rather than being constantly bombarded or attempting to trick you into using them like with Notion. And yes, I'm aware you can email them to turn it off, but increasing friction needlessly like that just goes against my core philosophy. The thing I like the least about Capacities is it hides what I find to be some key features behind a paywall, such as queries, which is similar to creating a stripped-down database view in Notion. And you can do much more complex things with the databases in Notion, and that is free. In the latest form of my Notion, when I did the overhaul, I broke everything up into basically 5 sections on my homepage. The first is the journal. So while I found that tracking data can be helpful for things like symptoms, energy level, moods, etc., I find that I use my journal actually more for memory keeping because my memory is quite bad. It goes especially well with Capacities since they have the calendar integrated as a core function, and really the only thing I'm missing at this point is I want them to add an on this day feature as an integrated function into Capacities, and then it'll have everything I need. Because I have a formula in Notion that automatically can pull that up, so I can see the same day last year, the year before that, the year before that, etc. And I like being able to just see that. It's fun to remember what was happening a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, whatever. See how far you've come, see how things have changed, see what's the same. Next, I have my budget. This is the only thing that I have actually moved into an Excel spreadsheet because I don't want Notion's AI training on such sensitive data. Plus, I would be quite upset if I ever lost that data just randomly, because it's a lot. Next, I had my task list. This is now deprecated as it was never really the smoothest to use in Notion anyway. Capacities does have tasks built in, and that is a paid feature. It's a way that I've liked more. Also, I have been using because they give you a free trial. So that's how I've been able to access the paid features without paying and see what I think of them. But yeah, it just feels much easier to use. And remember, I don't need to go to a special page and see or whatever. And I just find myself opening up Capacities more often than Notion. So I am reminded also more often in that way. Then I had the notebook, which was basically where all my miscellaneous things would go and where all those notes that I was saying that I had in Obsidian, I moved them from there because I would not really know how to organize them. And then I had also other pages within the notebook, like things for career, a cookbook, my hair, my health, the laundry. Notes is where those miscellaneous notes would go. Interests, tarot, and wardrobe. So a lot of my notes did get moved into Obsidian, and then now a lot of them have been moved into Capacities. So I've deprecated the notes by moving it. I will continue having the career, cookbook, hair, and wardrobe in Notion because I want to use the databases to review and analyze data more clearly. For cooking, I have complex queries, I guess you could say, like an auto-generating shopping list or the ability to automatically calculate how many ingredients or how much time a recipe has or takes, auto-generating what ingredients are missing for a recipe, etc. So I don't know for sure if I could replicate that in Capacities. I don't think so, just because, again, its database features are much more basic. But I would have to try, I guess, to be sure. My interests is also now defunct because I can just create objects and capacities as they arise and then link them together. Honestly, that database didn't really get much use in Notion even. I feel like I had several databases in Notion that I didn't end up really using, but because of the way capacities can link things more easily or find things more easily without you looking for them with the unlinked mentions, now it's more useful to have it in there. And then I want to be able to look at data in my wardrobe, like things I haven't worn in a year, or what my most worn items were, or what colors I wear the most, or what materials I wear the most. So for things like that, I definitely do need the databases, and that I feel like the wardrobe is honestly going to be the one that I use the most in Notion, probably. The next section I have is for other people. So first was my friends. This is just now my person object in capacities. I much prefer how information is organized here, and the backlinks and unlinked mentions are especially powerful because I was trying to connect everything in Notion, but I had to actually go out of my way to do it, while here everything just shows up a lot more easily. The only feature I'd like added here is a recurring birthday to show up in the capacities calendar every year, because I just haven't found a great way of remembering people's birthdays still, and I think that could be helpful. Next is a gifts. This I'm going to keep in Notion as well because, one, it's just too much to move over and I don't really care to. And two, I think it would unnecessarily clutter things in capacities anyway. It's just a database of all the gift ideas I have for people with, links, prices, pictures, etc. Maybe if I only had a couple things, I would move it over, but I find too many things that are relevant for people. And then finally, I had a page for my cat. So I will keep that one as well because I track how much my cat eats every day to track any changes he may have in his eating habits, as he has early stage chronic kidney disease. I also track his vet visits, so I'll keep those in Notion. Plus a wish list, which I didn't use too much, but yeah, I'm going to keep it in there for the same reason. But I did move over the vaccinations that I had as tasks. The next section is fun. So first I had games. I have fully moved this over into capacities. It honestly in Notion just got way, way, way too overwhelming and cumbersome. So I think starting from scratch is nice. I'm only going to create game objects if needed, but otherwise I can just mention a game's title in text form without needing to create a whole object for it. I mainly just like to see what I've been playing every month and every year, if I played something with somebody, and what kind of genres and themes I enjoy in the video games that I play. So I feel like that fits well into capacities. And yeah, just good to start from scratch also is nice. I also like that there's I've added a release date property, and that can then show in my calendar so that can remind me if I've forgotten that a game is coming out on a certain date, which is really cool. Next, I had music. So even though music is a huge part of my life, as someone who spent most of my life listening to music for 8 or more hours every single day, I surprisingly never got much use out of it in Notion. I'm not going to recreate it or move it to capacities. If I want an object of a musician, I'm just creating them as a person at this point, and then I can link to them that way, but I haven't really needed it beyond that. I just guess I engage with music more by actually experiencing it rather than tracking it, because I listen to obviously songs repeatedly and artists repeatedly throughout my life, so it's just I just haven't found really a way for it to make sense, even though I really, really love music. I would say really the most useful part of it was the concerts, which I have moved over into my capacities into my experience object. Next was zines. I have fully moved this into capacities as it really was just me putting down ideas for things. And I had also messily put a database for journal spread ideas in there. So now that's all together in capacities, and I don't need to be making more pages, more databases, whatever. Everything is just together. Easier to find, easier to see. Next, I had books, which I deprecated this at the beginning of 2026 because I started using the StoryGraph website app. Then I discovered the PagePact app, via a random YouTube video once again. And that app is definitely still a work in progress, just made by one person and everything, but it's really awesome, and I'm very excited to see it grow because I'm definitely ready to like use it full time over Storygraph, especially since I hadn't been using, Storygraph for years. I know there are people who use Goodreads for a long time, and exporting all that information can be a lot. Though they do have an import feature, but yeah. I think it's just better for me to have these apps and track them in there just when I start or end or whatever. And then if I really want to add a book because I'm taking notes on it and whatnot, then I create that as an object within my media object in Capacities instead. So this means I'm only adding things more because I'm diving deeper into them and I have extensive notes on them rather than just for tracking what I read. Finally, I add crochet, which I have essentially abandoned, though I am trying to think of it more as a pause for a couple of years now because I just got really overwhelmed with life stuff. And I would like to continue my crochet project. So whenever I am able to revisit that project, I'll decide, if it's better in Notion or in Capacities, but for now I'm just going to leave it in Notion. I'm trying to only put things in Capacities as they become actually relevant and necessary, and not to just move things over mindlessly. Next, I have my places section. So that had restaurants. This I'm not sure if I want to keep this one or not in Notion, because what's helpful in there is being able to filter by cuisine and all that, but I've started adding some of them to my places object in Capacities as I actually go to them. But I'll have to decide. I mean, I know I could of course create like a cuisine property in Capacities as well. I just haven't done that. Then I have places and events. I'm not sure what to do with the events either because I only really just started using that in Notion recently. I was using it to remember what events are happening and when, so I could do them before they're over, like a limited time museum exhibition. And then I've obviously moved over the places to places, though I didn't actually just like copy paste them in or whatever. I'm again only creating them as I go to them. If there's something I actually want to remember though to go to, then I will create one. And then I had travel, so that was just a lot of the trips that I had, and I actually prefer having them in Capacities under places. The only thing I'm going to leave in Notion is I had a packing list and it connected with my wardrobe, so I'll leave that there. But anything else related to trips, I think I can just have in Capacities. It's not like I'm going on a trip every day or something. And then the last section is dreams. So first here is my personal wish list. I'm leaving that in Notion for the same reason as the gifts. Then I had goals. This is very new because I'm not someone who actually really thinks about and writes down goals, but I thought maybe it could be helpful and I wanted to experiment with that for this year. So these just include overall ways of living and then also actual milestones that would be part of achieving these lifelong goals. I'm definitely leaving the milestones in Notion because it's able to track specific metrics, which is what Notion's best at. But I have created areas in Capacities, though I was not actually tying those to goals in any way. I was just thinking them of as more of like life pillars. So they aren't one-to-one to my goals in Notion. But they're close enough, some of them. And then I have a few more areas that are needed for more like life admin type stuff. And then the bucket list. So this has been moved into Capacities under the experience object, which is one of my newer objects. It's also not so narrow now as to just be a bucket list, as I'm just going to add an object for any significant experience that I've had as a way to just look back at fun things I've done, accomplishments, whatever, things like that. I want to discuss what my capacity space is to me and what my intentions are with it. So the space is a place to preserve what matters to me through documenting my life and conversations I've had, exploring what interests me, and connecting the ideas, the people, the experiences, and the media that shape my life. This all helps me understand myself and the world. Essentially, I am using the space to remember, understand, and create. I've named it Afterimages because I want everything here to remain in my mind even after experiencing it once. I want to remember it. If you don't know, an after image is an image that continues to appear in your eyes after a period of exposure to the original image. So if you've ever looked directly into the sun and then closed your eyes and saw the sun sort of flashing, that's an after image. My capacity space is not a personal knowledge management system, or PKM. It's not about being productive. It's not about making more money. It's not about anything tied to that. It's just for my own enjoyment and knowledge. It's not meant to manage information for the sake of efficiency and checking off a checklist. While I do have some tasks set up so I can remember to do them, the point is that I want to revisit things that I've forgotten over time. I want to see how my interests and my thoughts connect to each other. I want to remember how an idea or an interest first began. And I just want to remember my life. I've struggled to remember my life as I've dissociated through most of it. So I've really enjoyed jotting down what happens every day to look back and reflect on later, especially to see what I was feeling and doing the same day years ago. Writing these things down also helps me better store memories in the long term. I also just enjoy seeing artists I've discovered or video games I've played and diving deeper into them. I want to make more intentional connections with the things I love because just engaging with them brings me joy, and I want to learn more deeply about the things that bring me joy. Plus, to be able to do things that I've dreamt of, I need to understand myself and the things that interest me better. So to dive in a bit deeper and see what it actually looks like, I will show you these objects and everything. So here is the calendar view. Just chose a random date so you can see what it looks like. Any object that has a date property, you will see up here. And that's because you can just press, add task, and it's going to create a task linked to this day. And the same goes for all these other objects here. And then you have your daily notes, which, like I said, auto-generated by Capacities. You can just click there and boom, 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 start writing. You can also tag your daily notes. You can tag literally any object as anything. And then here you will see anything relevant to that date. So I have a video game, and in the properties for the video games, I have the dates played. So I played The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow on this day. I have a note that I created on this day. I have, of course, my journal stuff created this day. And then I have, as I was mentioning, a video game release date. Dos Divas came out on this day. And then I have that I also played Dreamfall chapters. So that can be a fun way when you're going through the calendar to just really, really quickly see what you did at a glance on a certain day. You would also have tasks here if you had any. I did not, so they're not there. But also if you had completed a task, it would go away. But I know I didn't have any tasks created because I didn't start using and testing tasks until recently. Then you will have date references, which does show you basically this, but it can also show you if you wrote in a note anywhere and then you tagged this date, because you can essentially, do like at now, and it's like boom, that's for today and not for May 9th, but it would then show up in that way. Then you have what you created on this day. So I have tags I created, notes I created, person I created, places I created, quotes, concepts, games, etc. You get the idea. I'm not going to really look at these because I don't think they're interesting in that format, but I can show you what a day looks like, and we can go into that a bit more. So I have a template set up to write the date like that. I don't remember how that is, so let me pull it up real quick. Okay, so if you write it that way, it'll show up that way. Here, yep, you put your date. Again, you can tag it as anything. You add your weeks and your months, I guess just to show you what it looks like. I have previous day and next day, which are just for navigational purposes, so I can easily go back and forth between days without having to like go into the days object or something like that. I have my energy levels, so depleted, low, mellow, high, very high that day. I have the atmosphere, which is just kind of give me an idea of the day overall and see if that maybe affected my mood or my energy or anything like that. The mood is definitely more of an overall emotion throughout the day rather than you might have emotions on a more, I guess, smaller scale, like shorter scale maybe. So you could be in, a good mood all day or whatever. You could be in a grateful mood all day or most of the day, etc. While the emotions present are the ones, again, that are more immediate. Then I have emotional intensity, which is something I've never tracked before, and I'm not sure if it'll be helpful. It's just an experiment to see, but since I struggled to connect with my emotions myself, I thought maybe it could be helpful to look at. So just to see if I'm feeling like very disconnected from my emotions, or I can like faintly feel them, or it's noticeable but not overwhelming, or it's intense. Then I have symptoms. So again, for like health tracking purposes, even though I did have this in Notion, I never looked at the data too much, which might just be a fault on my part. I don't know. But that's why I'm trying doing that in here, because I'm like, maybe I don't actually need to look at it in a quantitative way, and maybe just kind of seeing natural patterns over time could be good. I don't know. We'll see. Then I have the highlights of the day. So just anything really cool, exciting that I want to remember. What's on my mind. So anything worrying me, things that I'm ruminating on. I've worked on, which is just anything I've worked on. Could be a project or just fun stuff I did, whatever. I have meals, so here is where I would also put like I went to whatever restaurant and had this, which I would also use in tandem with the symptoms in case I had any digestive symptoms, but also I just like to remember where I went, what I ate, if I liked it, so I can remember if I want to get that again or not. And then who I spent time with. You also see I have these, which I just have these properties to be hidden unless there is something written in them. So I have noticed, which is basically just for kind of noticing anything creatively interesting, inspiring. I noticed how the sun lit through the trees and I liked that, or I saw photography in this style and I want to try that, or whatever. It could be literally anything. Then listening, just whatever music I was listening to, whatever games I was playing, whatever stuff I was watching, and whatever I was reading. And then I have also, as part of my template, I have a feelings and emotion wheel, which I have embedded so I can actually open it up and see. And it's basically just because I, again, struggle with my emotions, so I just find it helpful to look at and reference in case I'm really feeling like I don't know what I'm feeling, and maybe this will help me figure it out. Then you have tags. So here is my design tag, for example. It'll actually show you related tags, which is cool. I'm guessing that's like anything you've tagged within any object that you've tagged as that. So it can just put everything like I have for design together. So like I have something in media, I have a bunch of concepts, I worked on something, and I have a bullet point that's actually within one of these concepts, but I specifically tagged design. So that's just a fun way of aggregating everything of a certain theme and being able to look at it, which can be very helpful because our brains, obviously they're good at making connections, but we're not able to remember literally everything we've ever, experienced and read and whatever. So I find this to be helpful. So an example area I have is exploration. So to me, that's the part of life that's centered around exploration, culture, spontaneity, meaningful events. So right within here, this is a block property. I can type task and then literally just create a task relevant to this if I have one that is relevant to this. And then I have my tags here, and then it'll show you backlinks, related content, and anywhere you actually mentioned the area. So here is my people object, which is very, very fun. I'm not going to show the people personally that I know, of course, but in terms of public figures, it's really cool having like writers and artists and things like that. I had decided to actually, instead of making their profile image, when they're a visual artist, these people are not visual artists, but when they're a visual artist, to use an actual piece of their work as their, I guess, profile image. And it's a really fun way for me to see like the kind of art that I like and see it all kind of quickly at a glance. And it's also just very visually appealing, of course. So, for example, on this person. Okay, so I have roles. The roles I have set up are friend, work, family, professional, and public figure. I have contact, where you can just write in whatever. So it can be phone numbers for people you know, or links for artists, whatever. Then I have their sphere, which I have as creative, intellectual, or internet personality. And then I have their focus, which is a bunch of things. And there can be more than one, of course, so I can select multiple. So this person is a photographer. I do also have a photography tag, so I tagged them with that. And because their art, as you'll see here, work focuses on ennui, existential crisis, and heartbreak, put relationships and grief as some tags as well. And so here, if I can find a photo of the artist, I do put it here. And then just, whatever relevant about their work. And then I have this query of associated works, which I discovered through NIMS Tech. You can definitely see that in your backlinks, but I like the visual style more. And so here I have 2 of their photography series in my media. And I'll just show you what that looks like right now, even though media is not next. So here is one of Witchoria's series called Human Error. So I can put the title, I can tag it, put a cover image from their photos. I tag them as the author. I have different types. So I just called this photography. I had to make that one up. I can rate it. For me, the date completed is basically when I finish processing it. And by processing it, I mean like taking notes and everything on it. And then if necessary, you can put in a link. So the sections I have for processing stuff, well, for photography and specifically, I have a photos one because obviously I need to look at whatever it is. Then I have themes. So like here, heartbreak, breakup, death, existence. If I had any questions while looking at the art, I could put those here. I didn't have any. And then any highlights and observations. So for example, these are computer UI prompts overlaid on photos that look like Polaroids. And then just whatever notes I want to take on that, basically. And then something also fun that Capacities does with all your objects is if it thinks there's any related content, it will put them here. So these are 5 other artists that it has decided might be relevant, might be related to Witchoria. Next, I have my places. I have them grouped by their type. Some of these came, or actually I think all of these came pre-built into Capacities, so I don't have any parks yet. I'm waiting to see if it becomes relevant or not, and we'll see. As an example, here's a country, so Colombia. Made the cover image. You could rate it. Obviously define what it is. I'm still not entirely sure how to use the location field. Like sometimes it makes sense, like for a restaurant, if it's in a specific city, I can put that, but other times like this, I'm like, I don't know, like South America? Like, what should I be putting? I mean, it's really up to you, obviously. I do have this field for being, who recommended me to go to that place, and it's only visible if I actually wrote something in there. And then I just took some notes on when I went here, what cities I went. I didn't actually make city places. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, who knows. And then this is actually the year object that I am trying out. I'm hoping with the year object to kind of at a bird's eye view see important things I did and places I went and things I experienced, people I met, things like that. But that I'll only see if it works over time. And here I have my quotes. Again, the words object is basically this, but what real people said to me, so you can just look at that on that level. So if you open up a quote, this is what it looks like. I have the attribution here, and if I ever, make an object of Jeanette McCurdy or of her book, I'm Glad My Mom Died, then I could link them here. I can also, if I just want to make one now, highlight them, and then press plus, which will create an object from this. And I would just type in person, and then boom, it's made. And then I have it created at field, which it just automatically puts whenever this was created. Then I obviously have a quote here. I've tagged it as things. And then if I actually want to like take notes on it or whatever, I can write that here. And again, it has some backlinks where I actually mentioned it, and then what it thinks is related to this quote, which can also be, I find really fun with the quotes to see what it thinks are related. Next, I have my concepts. And again, this is a very fun place to go because it's basically like all my interests and also just things I want to remember, learn about, words I want to definitely integrate into my knowledge. So for example, here is my cyberpunk concept. So I have my cover image from the classic Blade Runner. Here are tags that I tagged the concept as, and then it also has tags that were mentioned in here. So you see I put identity here and it just auto put it here because of that. I have related concepts, so I can link any concepts together. I have the definition. Date is basically, again, for when I've processed it, though I'm not planning to necessarily do that with all of them, I guess. So I'm not entirely sure, maybe I won't keep this field in the future. I don't know, we'll see. Any references here for where I got my information. And so I just like to put like the features of cyberpunk, the history of cyberpunk, the values of cyberpunk. And then I linked to, as I mentioned earlier, I do have that genre, which that doesn't really have anything like in terms of information. It's just showing video games I have of this genre. And then I did also add these to show because I also forgot actually I have a cyberpunk tag as well, and I have a concept. So yeah, it's getting a lot because I'm, as you can obviously tell, very interested in cyberpunk. So yeah, I need to figure out what to do with that better. Maybe just have it in concepts. I don't know. If you have ideas, feel free to give them to me. I'm happy to listen. And then once again, it has the backlinks, any related content, and anywhere that I mentioned it. Here is what my media objects look like. Not going to go into them because we literally looked at this one, but you can see there's photography, there's articles, there's books. It can be anything. Next, I have my video games object, which is a very fun place for me. So we can take a look at By Sweet Carol. So here I have the studio or person, whoever created it, when it came out, my play status on it, when I played it. I don't remember when it was started. I think this is just when I took notes because this was actually something I took from Obsidian. I hadn't actually been tracking dates, I think. And then the genres, which are in my genre object, but may get integrated into the concept object, we'll see. And then I like to also have diversity, so female protagonist, LGBT themes, if the protagonist is of color, a person of color, if it's a trans protagonist, and then what I thought of it. And then, similar to the media, because I actually got that from how I keep track of things here. So I have quotes. This one, for example, literally, I just did that plus thing and then quote, boom, and it turned it into a quote. So that's why you can see the underline and the little icon. And if you hover over, shows it right there. I have the themes of it. You have all these little nice toggles, which is nice. I have any questions I had, and then any highlights and observations I had. And again, it shows backlinks throughout and any related content. Here is my genres object. I basically have them in 2 collections. I think this is the only one I might be using collections of. And so I have it broken up into genres, so like video game genres, and then themes, which can obviously be in video games, but can also be in movies, TV, books, whatever. And yeah, again, I don't have anything in them in terms of information. It is just showing me any video games of that genre. And this is a query that I made. Then I have my writing object. So I haven't fleshed out really too much any of these. So this is just an idea for like a list, blog article type thing. And I have them as like lists, reviews, essays, journal spreads, zines. Then I have the status, can be any of those. I realize this, okay, no, so this can only be one at a time. Then I can put here like when I started working on it, when I finished, and then if I have anyone I'm working on it with, I can add them here. And then I've obviously tagged this as video games, and then just very, very quick notes. Then I have the projects object, so I have it right now broken up by status. I haven't actually done any of these, so I don't have anything anywhere else. But yeah, I saw these very, very cool overalls. So here is an example of like how I have a project. Here is kind of the cover image. I have the status. Again, time frame is similar. I have what type of project it is. And then if I have any associated tasks with it, I can put them in there. And then again, collaborators. So I have here like, how do I do it? So here's a video. And then I took screenshots from the video to just more easily reference without having to rewatch the video. So I have those all here. Then I have like other inspiration for like other things that could be painted on maybe. The tools that they used when making and painting, their technique for that. Just, whatever you want in there. Then I have my experiences object. So here we're looking at experiences I want to have, which is a query. And so I have them grouped by the area. So those are over here. So here are just some examples. And I haven't really written anything in any of these, but basically that's what it looks like. I put, whatever it is. This one, I tagged it as music. I tied it to whatever areas. And then once I've actually done that, I would put the date in here. And then it could show up in my accomplishments query, which will just be a nice pick-me-up maybe when you're feeling down or just remember the things you've done. It's just nice to do.